Say hi, CJ.
Hi,
Oh,
CJ.
jeez.
Does that look okay, or do I
I
have
don't
to?
see anything, but let me double check this. Let me see if I can fix this here. There we go.
Hi, CJ.
Hi. Hi, Josh.
Josh, guess what? We're connected.
What? We are connected. Holy shit.
Let's
CJ, I
do
am
it, buddy.
so
Thank you for being
excited to have you
patient.
here, man.
You know, Jason
Thank
is
you for being patient.
1986. We don't do technology, okay? I just got GPS on my machete last week.
Oh, man. That's fantastic. I do love that you've got Jason behind you just like I do. This is
You
perfectly
know,
fitting here.
somebody's got to have my back, and
Yeah.
that's my man.
Appreciate it. I also appreciate that Raiders helmet. I know this isn't really a sports talk, but I am a Raiders fan as well, so that's nice to see.
They don't ever win, but they look good.
Yeah, that's true. That's what matters. Happy birthday. I know you just had a birthday a couple days ago.
Yes, I did. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Yeah, happy belated. So, as a lot of people may know, you played Jason Voorhees in Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. Um, and I'm sure you've told the story plenty of times, but you said that the role just kind of fell into your lap. How did you end up playing Jason?
Well, and I've said it a few times, but it's like saying it the first time. I was the general manager of a nightclub in Los Angeles, big joint, like 15,000 square feet. I had a hypnotist on Thursday nights that did a show. Your weekends always carry themselves, but you need something during the week for entertainment. It just happens that he brought a company in to do a video of his show. He was trying to put together, in those days, VHS for promotional purposes. The company that came in happened to be the company that did all the special effects, called Real Effects, on part four with
Hmm.
Ted White. And they suggested to the hypnotist that we put my big butt in Ted White's wardrobe and have me come through a breakaway screen on the stage. And I did. And when I stood there after the fact, they came up to me and said, we're going to cast you for Jason. Yeah, okay. You've all heard the big story. I'm going to make you a movie star. And so I said, okay, whatever. Yeah. However, a couple months later, I got a phone call that they wanted me to come meet the director, Tom McLaughlin, the stunt coordinator, Michael Nomad, and then, of course, over to Paramount Studios to meet Frank Mancuso Jr. So, unfortunately, I didn't get the part. I was not a stuntman nor an actor, and a stuntman got the acting part, actually.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for him, the first scene that came back from the dailies did not project what they were looking for image wise. And unfortunately for him, he was released. So the one scene where you see the paintballs hit the midsection of Jason Voorhees in part six, it's not my midsection. It was the other man. And most people just assume I'm wearing padding because he's a little thicker than I am in the midsection. But I got a call on a Friday, said, "Hey, can you come down to Covington, Georgia?" And Tuesday, I was down there in full wardrobe making a movie.
That's amazing. That's so funny. Had you seen the first five movies before you got the role?
Familiar, yes, to a point. I'm a big horror fan, but I like universal horror, Frankenstein and werewolf. And, I'm a
Nice.
little older, so the old black and whites turn me on compared to now, the Jasons and the Freddy Kruegers and all that, they're pretty cool, Leatherface and stuff, the OGs, so to speak. Uh, Now that they've gotten into technology so much, I mean, they're great, but I really like the basics, just fundamentals of a horror figure, power, control, tearing people's heads off, and things of that nature. Today has gotten pretty computerized with green screens and cables, and I mean, I love Fast and Furious, but how many times can you jump on an airplane, land on a tank, do a backflip, and shoot a 50 cal? It gets a little bit outdated for me, but the real deal of you opening the door and Jason putting a machete through you, I like that.
Yeah. I am a big fan of that as well. That's awesome. So did you watch any of them to prepare for the role, or I'm
No,
sure
I
you've seen
went
them
in
since at
cold.
least.
I was
Nice.
familiar with part four and a little bit of part three with Richard Brooker, but I went in pretty cold because Tom McLaughlin, the writer director, had his own vision.
Mhm.
And with me being 100% a virgin to acting stunts, it really gave him the opportunity to just give me some directions and let me go. And that's what he did. He was a fan of the old Universal movies also, And as you can think about it, the concept was bringing Jason back like, Frankenstein, even more powerful. And if you remember the old Frankensteins, throughout the movie, he starts thinking a little bit. He starts connecting the dots with his brain and starts to pick up pieces. And there's some things, if you look in the Friday the 13th Part 6, that are like the James Bond opening. Coming back to life like Frankenstein. Alice Cooper, Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, doing the music. And don't forget, I get to wear a Batman utility belt.
Yeah.
So, I got some pretty cool things in Part 6, and I'm very fortunate that have become somewhat iconic. And I'm very fortunate to be part of the legacy of Friday the 13th.
Yeah, absolutely. So because you're the first iteration of Jason as a supernatural undead character, because he was alive for the first few movies and then was resurrected, and that I think that works. It works well that you went in cold because that kind of he's being essentially reborn. So it's like a new version of Jason, and now it's the version of Jason we all kind of know and love. And you got to be, as you mentioned, in the Alice Cooper music video.
Yeah, some people don't, they think, oh, you're wearing a hockey mask. How hard can it be to act? I challenge anybody to stand in front of a mirror, show anger, power, force, strength, but you can't move your eyes. You can't yell. Just look in the mirror, stone cold,
Yeah.
and just show it with your shoulders at that little quarter-inch tilt of the head. Because you can't go, on camera. It carries too much. It's just a minute little snap. And then show the anger when you're walking and the force and the power. I think beneficially to me, I'd only been out of the military a few years. With that, I learned to march and walk, very authoritative. 6'3", 250 does help a little bit. So I was fortunate, and today, we're decades later, we're still talking about it. So, I mean, I had no idea that it would become so iconic. Here's a good example I tell people. If I went to India, and I think India has about 1.4 billion, show them a picture of Tom Cruise, they'll all say, hey, Tom Cruise. Show them a picture of me, I have no idea who that is. However, if you show them a picture of Friday the 13th Jason, they'll all say Jason, Friday the 13th. They may not know it's C.J. Graham per se, but they do know the Jason character.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know there's a lot of people in this live who know CJ Graham too, which is exciting for them. So I do appreciate you doing this. What's the because those are the kind of people that are going to be doing like the conventions that you're going to. I know that's what you're hyping up for. Is you're doing a lot of convention appearances. What are your favorite things about doing conventions? Is it like the panels or the photo ops? Do you have a favorite part?
I think the most important part to me is just meeting the fans. You got to realize we're 3 decades later, and I ran casinos for over 20 years before I retired about 8 years ago. I had no idea that the magnitude of the conventions had come and how Jason had, grown, not just into the hearts of the fans, but young fans, 10 years old, 8 years old, 70 years old, and everything in between. I've had fans come up to me 3 generations in wardrobe. One of them was about 7 years old, another about 22 years old, and the father was about 40. And they all were dressed up as different Jasons to come up to my table and get autographs. To me, it's more of an honor. I had no idea. And the most important thing about the fans is I wouldn't be here without the fans. Sometimes people forget where they came from. I remember, that I got lucky. I fell into this, and I'm old school. To me, I have a responsibility. I feel, when I was young, we used to always look for athletes to look up to, and that was part of their job. And today it's a little different. It's not expected as much. Where for me, I get a chance to talk to a young person. First thing I'm asking them how they're doing in school. Are they into sports? Are they brainiacs? Are they writing codes? Try to figure out what they're doing. And then, of course, connect with the parents who brought them in, because they've all become Jason fans. I have people that sit there and say, I remember when I'd look around the corner and my big sister was watching it and I wasn't supposed to be. But I got to see it. And now, 35 years old, they're a fan. You got to realize we did this in 1986. Top Gun was the best movie of the year then.
Yeah.
These B movies, as they were called, and still are called to be fair, they weren't anything of substantial. It was, hey, you did a B movie, you played a monster. But it's interesting today, Josh, because every film out there now, not every film, but a lot of the films, people are wearing masks. It might be Captain America, it might be RoboCop, but they're wearing masks, and people really like to put a mask on. And the thing about a mask is, I really believe anybody, once they put a mask on, their whole characteristic changes. They may be the most quiet person in the room, but you put them in a hockey mask or a Batman mask, they become a badass. It's just natural. They just change into the character naturally.
Yeah, it's that's a fair point. I definitely agree with that. As somebody who also does really stupid comedy sketches on my TikTok channel wearing masks, it's does something to your confidence to not have people see your face or look you in the eye. It makes
It
you quite a
does.
badass.
It
So
does. And I think it's interesting because, I'm not a psychologist, but, when you have some people that are a little more quiet, a little reserved or inverted, so to speak, you put them in a mask and let them run around the house, like Superman with a towel on their shoulders, they become superhuman again. If we could just get them to convert that over to everyday experiences, they wouldn't be so inverted. They'd be more, like me walking around 6'3", 250 without a care in the world.
absolutely. So I saw one question come through in the comments. Somebody had asked, "What's another horror icon that you've thought about or wanted to play besides Jason?"
Back in the era when we were doing this, knowing that I was so big that I wouldn't get a lot of parts, I mean, I'll use Tom Cruise as an example, only because he's a normal size actor, 5'9", 5'8". I'm 6'3". Nobody wants to stand next to my big butt. But I think it would have been cool back in those days if there were managers and agents that represented uh, people that could play all the different characters. I don't care about people seeing my face. I mean, I always, laugh about Michael Myers because I always say real men like me, we use a machete, not an Outback steak knife. So I go back and forth with those guys, but I'd put on the mask and walked around as Michael or Leatherface. I think being those different characters would have been kind of cool when you want a prosthetics on somebody's face, like I did with Hellcop. You call, CJ, or you call one of the other actors that don't mind doing the prosthetics.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to talk about Hellcop a little bit as well because I just rewatched Highway to Hell and I love that fucking movie so much. It's so fun. What was worse, the Hellcop makeup or your Jason getup?
Definitely Hellcop. Jason for the first on and off, because remember, a movie is shot out of sequence. So there were times when I was in the coffin that there were prosthetics were full, dentures, everything. But once we got to putting the mask back on and shooting, it was very simple. You just had a big hood that you put on and the face area was cut out so you could breathe well. Hellcop had to be 5 hours of makeup every day, in and out, no matter what. So the prosthetics were much more granular and detailed, including the lips. I couldn't eat lunch during lunch breaks. They would make me protein shakes with a straw, and that was my
Oh,
lunch. So I would sit there drinking my protein shakes because if I started eating a greasy burger or something, whatever, the prosthetics of the lips would start coming off because they were glued. But everything from the ears to the nose was glued on me for Hellcop. But it was a very interesting role. It's unfortunate that Hemdale, that did Highway to Hell, unfortunately bankruptcy a couple weeks before the distribution of the
mhm.
theaters. So with that being said, it just kind of sat on the shelves until a few years back. I think United Artists and MGM bought the library, and now that you can find it out there with DVD. In fact, every once in a while somebody will bring me a poster, a movie poster from it, and it's color. Well, the originals weren't color because I still have some of the originals in my garage. They're black and white, and they were sent to me from Hemdale. So they're still black and white were the original movie posters, but now that they put it back out, it's color.
That's awesome. Yeah, I thought that movie was so much fun. I hope it finds its cult audience now that it's out there and easy to find because I just thought that was a blast. So when you do the conventions, I saw you at Silver Scream a couple years ago, and I
Right.
think I've seen you at a couple of other conventions. And then when I met Kane Hodder, one of the first things he told me when we took a photo together was, "I can't choke you. I'm not allowed to choke people anymore." Because apparently it's a legal thing. But I remember seeing plenty of photos where people would have him choke them or hold them up like he was attacking them as Jason. What is the weirdest thing that anyone's ever asked of you at a horror convention?
Well, they always want you to choke them. I
Yeah.
mean, that's just a natural thing. What it is what it comes down to is conservativity, to be careful, because you could accidentally hurt somebody. I don't know if you've got pins and needles in your neck. Just grabbing you could be dangerous. You just don't know. But they always want you, choke me, kill me. And so that's how, and Kane has been famous for doing that for years. And I do believe that somebody, alleged that he hurt their neck or something. And, you don't know. You can pull a muscle so easily just by brushing your teeth that it could be any response. So we're all a lot more careful, conscientious. Uh, but, they still want you to grab their t-shirt and let them know that you're in control. And a lot of times they'll come to me at my table prior to the photo op and say, "Oh, I'm getting the photo op with you today when you're in wardrobe. And here's what we want to do." They'll have it all staged. The girlfriend's screaming, the boyfriend's got a spear up to his throat, and they get this great. Now, Kane will tell you the same thing, and I've known Kane forever. He works hard. I mean, he's been a great, great ambassador for the Friday the 13th franchise. He's been out there for 20 years doing shows, and I would say conservatively, he does 30, 35 shows a year. And you could do that many if you wish to do so. But he works. He's out there every weekend doing something somewhere. So hats off to him. And it's good for me. I try to do 15 a year. There are opportunities to do, like I said, 25 or 30 or 40. That's a job when you're doing that. So I do 15, 18 maybe. I'm pretty well booked for this year already. I'm still getting calls, but at the same time, I'm just passing. As I said, I retired from running casinos and I have a ranch in Montana. So, for me to get out there and do the shows is a blast, but I also don't want to wear out my welcome with the fans. I don't want to be, you don't know. I mean, here we are 3 decades later and it's iconic. Another good example is, there are some other films out there that had great popularity, but after a couple, 3 years, they dropped off. Who knew that Friday the 13th, 3 decades later would still be strong?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. There are some franchises, it looks like old movies you'll see where you're like, I'm surprised this didn't spawn 10 more sequels, and then it just kind of fell by the wayside, or you just remember seeing them on the shelf at Blockbuster.
Right.
But for some reason, Friday the 13th just had that staying power. I think your performance in part six had a lot to do with that, obviously. That was the franchise had hit a bit of a low point. Fans were mad that Jason wasn't in part five, and they were really excited to see Jason come back. And I remember 6, 7, and 8, I think or 5, 6, and 7 were the three that were always on TV when I was a kid. So your version of Jason is one that is seared into my brain from a very young age.
Yeah, and I'm very fortunate that part six was done by Tom McLaughlin. I see him occasionally at a convention. He's has written another script, Jason Never Dies, but it's just trying to put the parties together. There's still some struggles between a couple of the parties with the franchise to get it on, but it's unfortunate because Tom, I think, did a good job with part six. He left it where he was set up for part seven, Jason Never Dies, to come back. He's asked me, would you ever consider putting the wardrobe on if the opportunity came?
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I look the same in wardrobe because my face is uglier as I've gotten older, but my physique is still the same. So when I put the wardrobe on for the photo op, people are somewhat shocked when they come around the corner and I'm just standing there with that pose. But like I told Tom, I've gotten older. When I was young, I could, I hit the ground, I tuck and roll. Now when I hit the ground, I go thump, and then I kind of roll over like a turtle to get up.
I
So
I know
here's
that
here's
goes.
the
Yeah.
answer to the question. If I felt I could deliver a product as good or better than part six, I'd be in. For the fun of it, just the ability to say I did it. And the next one is part 13. So of course, what an honor to do part 13. But at the same time, if I couldn't give a product, I don't want to be the has-been that stepped in and didn't deliver a product of quality. I mean, I'm smart enough to know I'd have to tape my ankles and my knees and stuff like that now. But it's interesting to see where it's going and where it's gone. And Kane, again, he did four of them, did a great job. Known him for many, many years. I get to see a show with him. Periodically, we do wardrobe together with fans.
Mhm.
So it's fun.
That's awesome. I think I would love to see in another one if the moment comes up. I think you could still tear up some campers. You definitely look the part still.
Thanks.
Um, For so speaking of, we had mentioned you got a lot of conventions coming up. You said you're doing about 15 or 20 this year. Those are all on jasonvi jasonsix.com. You have your calendar there so people know where they can find you.
Yes, and then of course they do pop in every. Wisconsin. I'm going to Kansas next month. A lot of the comic cons have started to marry into horror cons and tattoo cons into one convention.
Yeah.
I did one recently, which was just as big on the tattoo side of it as it was on the horror side of it, and they've just kind of married together. Uh, when I do Kansas next month or this month, I guess it's already March. It's a lot of the voiceover with a lot of different actors and actresses, and then a lot of the wrestlers. I'm the only horror person there. But again, when you've got these voiceovers and all these different Ninja Turtles and the wrestlers and their managers, and then there's Jason sitting in the middle.
Yeah.
So, but it's fun. Anime and everything, they've all become one. And people are surprised because they may come in because they're an anime fan. But then there's Jason, and all of a sudden, oh, I love Jason. It's just they weren't expecting me to be at the Comic Con. So it is nice when the Comic Cons marry with the horror cons and the tattoo cons. It makes it much more universal when it comes to doing a show.
Yeah, definitely. I can agree with that. I like yourself, I have quite a few tattoos, so tattoo conventions are a lot of fun for me. And if you can put that with a horror con, then I'm like a kid in a candy store. So somebody had asked a question. How do you feel about the Friday the 13th fan films? I think you've appeared in
You know,
a couple of them, right?
it's kind of interesting. I always go, I think since the films principle haven't been coming out since '09, that the fan films are gives you an idea how valuable and how alive. I did Vengeance 1 and 2, which I played Elias Voorhees, Jason's father. Tom McLaughlin has always, when he wrote into it, had thought about putting the father involved just to enlighten the story. So I did play Jason's father. I let my beard grow for about 6 months. They put me in a long wig like a Viking. So I looked like an outdoor woodsman, basically. And then, of course, the gentleman Jason Brooks played Jason in it, and he also directed it. You have other actors that have done out there and stuff. Tom Matthews was in Vengeance 2. He was also in Never Hike Alone, which is another spinoff of Friday the 13th. And the technology has gotten so advanced with cameras and editing. You don't have to have that $500,000 of the cameras anymore. And you can go ahead and go through and edit them well. Going back to the basics of a Friday the 13th, they're pretty simple. I mean, the only thing that really tightens them up is maybe the special effects. And they've gotten so good at doing their special effects, i.e., learning from Tom Savini's of the world and others to be able to create these monsters and the special effects of pulling out the entire spine of a body. Now you got to remember when I did part 6, there's Rambo came out a few years ago, and the very end of it where Sylvester Stallone pulls the heart out and it's beating. We did that in Jason part 6, just so you know. Guy, it was Horseshack. I don't remember if you remember Horseshack, but we pulled it out and the heart was beating and it was pumping blood out. Unfortunately, in those days, that would have made you an X-rated movie.
Yep.
So they had to take out the pumping of the blood. But it was funny because when I was watching that Rambo a couple of years back, I thought we did that in part 6. Same exact scene with the heart pumping, but we couldn't get it into the movie because it wouldn't make the rating of that time. So I think the simplicity of some of those things, twisting somebody's head off or pulling their arm off, it sounds a little hokey, but at the same time, that's definitely a force to reckon with.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned a few of them. Did you have a favorite kill that was either just your most enjoyable or the most fun to film for part 6?
Well, I think they were all enjoyable because I didn't go to jail. But I really liked killing the sheriff. And the
Yeah,
reason for that is because you're basically taking them and bending them backwards and breaking them in half. No blood, no guts, just pure power.
fair. I think that's probably my favorite too. I do love the entire RV sequence though. The face through the wall is still pretty iconic.
Yeah, and Darcy DeMoss happened to be in Vengeance too, also.
Hmm.
She had a part in that because there's something where that's always negotiable. Did she die? We don't know. All we know is her face went through the RV, but we never saw a body, so to speak.
Yeah, it's probably a
So
little
that was how
bruised.
they threw her into Vengeance too. I think she had a couple scars on her face, but other than that, she was still kicking. So I think when you go back to what you're saying as far as the films being done by the fans have become so good. It's no different than music. It's become so well done. You can sit in a one bedroom apartment and make a full you know, when it comes to your music with all the different sound effects and stuff, because everything is now in a form of AI and on your computer, etc.
Yeah, definitely. Was there a? I'm sure I already know the answer to this, but what was the most difficult scene to film in part six?
The most difficult was the underwater. And the
Yeah,
reason
that's what
for
I
that
figured.
is I'm underwater. I'm 20 feet underwater, chained down to the bottom. They put two center blocks at the bottom of a dive pool, which are the Olympic diving pools. They put two center blocks on the bottom of it, so I'd always come down to the same location. They put black tarp all the way around. We shot all night long. I didn't wear a wetsuit or anything. That's just wardrobe and me. After a while, several hours of shooting, they'd unhook the chain every little bit, and I would signal for air, and they'd bring me air. I couldn't see anything. It was pitch black. So you just take a deep breath and try to relax. You know what you're supposed to do in the scene. You don't panic. Obviously, that would be bad, and you hope they don't leave you, of course. But it's interesting. Last year, somebody in a panel asked me, "Hey, how come you didn't have a breakaway chain?" And I thought about it, and I go, "Good point." It
Yeah,
was a real chain. I mean, it was screwed up on my neck. So in a panic mode, there's no way, since I can't see and I don't know where the screw is, to get my gloves off and unscrew, get the chain off, and then get 20 feet up. There's no way I would have been able to do it. But I don't know why we didn't have a breakaway chain, to be honest with you. I guess we did things differently back then when it came to
yeah,
safety.
yeah. Definitely times have changed.
Yeah.
Nice. So if they were to do a new Friday the 13th movie, and you said if you thought you could deliver, do you have an idea of where you would have it go? Like what route you would take?
Well, I don't, but I had an opportunity to see some of Tom McLaughlin's write-ups on it of what he thought. It's interesting because he was playing off part six, the end of part six, coming back into seven, and then the introduction of Elias Voorhees and how that affected Jason and his mother in the upbringing of Jason being who he is today. So he did a really great job. I mean, he's put some nice information together for Jason Never Dies. It's just a matter of flipping a coin to see if anybody ever heads that direction. I think they've got a Friday the 13th series they're putting together currently. So yeah, you just don't know. The thing is, that's where going back to doubling back what you said about the fan films. The fans are the ones still making it hot by going out there shooting all the filming and keeping it out there on the market. Because we haven't had one in 15 years.
Yeah.
In fact, I do conventions. I just did one last week with Derek Mears. And maybe 3 months ago I did one with Alice Cooper, of course,
Hmm.
because he does conventions also. But Derek was just out there with me a week ago. We were in Atlanta doing a show together. And, he's the last Jason that's actually stepped on. He also did some serious Swamp Thing and a few other
Hmm.
things. So,
Nice.
and
Yeah, I
then
think that was
Ruby wants to say hi.
Hi.
Hi Ruby.
She's over here
Thank you
looking
so
at me,
much for
so I
helping
thought
set
I'd
this
put her on
up.
the spot.
Is
So you
anybody
guys are
saying
in
hi?
yeah. So you said you're on a ranch in Montana, retired right now. I want to ask a question. This is just for me, but I come from a poker playing family. I used to live in Vegas for years, and I love casinos. What was it like managing casinos for as long as you did?
I started in it. It's a good story because people, they do things, they get certain areas. I was very fortunate. I worked very hard. I
Mhm.
actually started as a security guard, like in 1980,
Mhm.
81, after I got out of the military. And then I sold change, right?
Mhm.
And then I realized I needed to get into security because I wanted to get into the pit. By taking the chips out to the pit, you get to meet the pit bosses. All right. So I learned how to deal, went to dealing school. I do my 8 hours of work, go out on the table, put my black and whites on and practice on a live table. And one day the casino manager came by and said, he's ready. And they transferred me into being a dealer. But my goal was to grow up the ranks. So supervisor, pit manager, casino manager, vice president, executive vice president, and eventually to get that ivory tower up there as a COO, general manager for the last 10 years of my career. It was enjoyable. I had 2,400 employees on any given day, give or take $100 million payroll budget with benefits, $1 billion resort. But the nice thing about it is I have a high school diploma right next to my honorable discharge from the military. So I didn't go to college. Point being, I'm not saying college is good or bad or indifferent. I'm just saying if you got a decent approach and you're a good leader. I was always good with numbers. That was the easy part. So I'm always happy that I can say, a lot of people they went to college to do these things. I didn't. I just worked hard and got the job. But I loved it. I had entertainment going on all the time. Different people coming in, CCR, Cyndi Lauper, Beach Boys, all these different folks performing in our venues. And then on top of that, 3,000 slot machines, 140 table games, 10 restaurants, give or take 500 rooms on any given day. So it was a good life, a good career. At 60, I decided to retire. It was either, staying for another 3-year contract, but I felt that was okay. I ran a spreadsheet and said, I'm good. I always knew I could do shows for fun money, I call it, and go out there and meet the fans. I just didn't realize the magnitude of it, the appreciation they have for the Friday the 13th. That's why I said you could do as many shows as you really want. But 15-ish, that's about enough for me. I mean, it's enjoyable, my big ass on a plane can be tough. That's the only thing I don't mean to be arrogant, but it's like I need first class. That's the only thing I ask for. Because my big butt, it's like I don't want to crunch the people next to me. To be fair, it's disrespectful. But sitting in those little chairs, all crunched up, that's tough. So as long as they give me, where I can sit up front and I can relax a little bit, watch a movie. Last week when I came back from Atlanta, it was a 4-hour trip. That's pretty tough on a body. Doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah. I bet. Yeah, I'll travel to Florida every once in a while, and I'm only 6 foot, and the leg room is brutal. So I can only imagine traveling back and forth for cons, and then you're sitting at a table and you're walking around, you're posing. It's tough on the body. You deserve first class. That's not arrogant.
Yeah, well, that's the only thing I ask for is guys, I got to have first class, and they get it though. That because the last thing you want is 3 hours on a plane with me, crunch. I'm going to put a mask on and start hurting people.
Yeah. So what are, I want to go back to Highway to Hell again for a moment, because that movie has so many, holy shit, I can't believe that guy's in this type moments. What are some of your favorite memories from filming that?
Well, the interesting thing is, I don't know if you ever heard of Ben the Stiller.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm familiar. He's got that new show,
What's
right?
he get, like 10 million a movie, give or take now?
Something like that,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, so he's in it for like 8 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
His mom and dad were in it, bless their hearts. His sister's in it, by the way. She's got a part.
Mm-hmm.
Christy Swanson, the original Buffy and the Vampire. Patrick Bergin, he was sleeping with the enemy opposite of Julia Roberts.
That's right.
So you get to see a couple people in there. One of the monsters in there with his eyes all sewn shut, he was the original Predator, who's passed away since then. But there were quite a few people in that film. I think the film had an opportunity to have its own franchise if, unfortunately, it would have been distributed as originally it was supposed to be without him having a bankruptcy. A lot of people, when I'm at the show, I'll always have 1 or 2 pictures out of Hellcop, and people are like, "You're Hellcop?" Because they don't know. It's just they see it, and they're like, "Oh, that's a cool part," but they really don't connect the dots that Jason and Hellcop are connected.
Yeah. Hellcop is awesome. He's got a fun gun and a really cool costume, and I was wondering, are there any props either from Part 6, Jason Lives, or Highway to Hell that you snuck off set that are sitting somewhere off camera that you can't show us?
Well, somehow I don't recall exactly, but the mask from the opening scene, James Bond scene, where we're doing all the green screen, it was in my bag. Who knew?
Yeah, just fell in, right?
So I still have it. In fact, it's here to my right. It's framed and everything. I even got pictures of me wearing that one specifically. And Bill Forsha, who did all the special, made the mask, saw me one time and gave me a nice letter of authorization or authenticity that in fact it was the one he made for the green screen for the opening. So, and then the glasses, I still have the glasses from Highway to Hell. So,
Nice.
just two little things. The mask obviously is of a value more than anything else. There was only maybe a dozen of them made for different scenes. I remember a gentleman came through years ago with a mask and asked me to sign it, and I know where the marks are. And I'm like, this is a real mask. Where'd you get it? He had bought it from one of the special effects guys with real effects. And he had
Nice.
spent quite a bit of money on it. And I was like, I just kind of went home real fast, and I was living in Las Vegas and went out to the garage and opened up, a box and found my mask real quick. It's like, okay, had no idea. So, just sitting in a box, wasting away. I mean, it's in great shape. One of the leather straps from the heat in Las Vegas, it cracked and broke. Straps from the heat in Las Vegas, it cracked and broke. But other than that, nothing wrong with it. So you never know. One day I might need $5 to get a hot fudge sundae.
Nice. So, speaking of the conventions, obviously, I want to remind people that are watching, you can go to jason6.com and check out the convention appearances CJ has coming up this year. What's the next one on the calendar?
Wichita, Kansas, on the 11th of March, and it's a
Okay.
Comic Con. So I'm going to be there hanging out, and then the week after that, I'm going to Texas. King of Horror is called, so it'll be a nice
Ooh,
chance to be there for the weekend in Texas. King of Horror, it's going to be a great one. Then I'm done until the following month. So I try to do one and or two a month most. I mean, before I cleaned up for this, I was shoveling horse poop for about an hour and a half. So, I do have a responsibility of taking care of the
yeah,
animals and feeding them. And we just had maybe 14, 16 inches of snow 2 weeks ago. And now it's pretty much all melted. It's been in the 50s for the last couple, 3 days.
that's crazy. I used to live in Colorado. I do not miss that. I know you guys enjoy the snow, I assume, but I am not a fan.
It's not as bad. I'm living in Montana. I'm on the what they call the banana side of it, the east
Hmm.
side. So that probably be the total of the snow we get this year.
Hmm.
For a couple of weeks it melts, it's gone, and that's that. We had 2 days of negative 15. That was it. So it's not as bad as like I said. It's been 50 for the last couple of days. In fact, this morning I was out painting on the garage. It's
Nice.
that warm. So it isn't too bad on the east side of Montana. Now, the west side, you get closer to the Rockies and Idaho and those things, and they get a couple, 3 feet. That's the norm for them. And when you get up towards the Canadian border, you can have negative 30s and 40s. So where we're at isn't that bad. I don't know about Colorado, and I guess I do know I fly through there periodically, and there's a canceled flight because of the weather conditions.
Oh yeah.
I was supposed to do a show in Minneapolis last year in November, and the flight got canceled because of all the snow that was going through United Airlines in Denver.
Oof. So for you're going to King of Horror, you said in Texas. I'm good. Are you doing photo ops at
Yes.
both the Wichita one and King of Horror?
Yep. So when
Nice.
I do a King of Horror convention, we'll full wardrobe, put it together. It's a lot of people ask for the wardrobe, and I don't mind doing it. It doesn't take me more than 15, 20 minutes to get into wardrobe, maybe 10 minutes to get out. You just got to wipe your sweaty mess off because you're so sweaty after being in that. But they really do like those, and I think it's become more popular with all the conventions now. Now,
Yeah.
5, 6, 7 years ago, only two people out there were doing wardrobe. That was Kane Hodder and me. And Kane was the first one to do it, to be fair. He was doing part 7.
Yeah.
and John was doing all the makeup for him in part seven, who was also the director and special effects person in part seven. And he did them a couple times, but they were so costly he couldn't do them anymore. Then I started, and then he got more conservative and started doing part eight, which was a lot easier for him to put the wardrobe together than the part seven. And now everybody does it. I mean, everybody does it. Even the scream queens are dressing up, doing their
Yeah.
wardrobe. Terrifier, David and everybody, they put full wardrobe on. Very, very popular right now, Terrifier. As is It. You still see them come out and put their wardrobe
Hmm.
on. But there are quite a few people do wardrobe now. I'm surprised if there aren't at least 5 or 6 people in wardrobe at every show now.
Yeah. I saw the last Silver Scream. They had the whole Terrifier cast there, and they all did a big in
Yeah,
wardrobe
and the
photo
young
op, and it
lady,
was
she
nuts.
dresses up Terrifier, but very
Yeah.
popular for people to be in wardrobe. As long as you do it, like my wardrobe is 95% spot on.
Mhm.
I mean, I spent some money to have the hood and everything made, the mask, and people do the wardrobe and get it tore up the way it should be. And I knew what wardrobe for me was. It was Vietnam era, uh, khaki shirt, khaki
Mhm.
pants. My web belt was Vietnam era. My 18-inch machete was Vietnam era. My boots, combat boots, were black Vietnam era. And you got to remember, I got the last 2 years of Vietnam, 74 to 75 through 78, when I was in the military. So I'm very familiar with that wardrobe when they put it
Yeah.
on me. But every once in a while, I see one that I look at it and go, "Ooh, you need to get that wardrobe spot on a little better," because the fans looking for it. They'll tell me if my button's unbuttoned or buttoned. Make sure you. Oh, I saw your button was buttoned. You didn't unbutton it. Oh shoot. So one of my pockets
Very
should be
serious.
unbuttoned. They see
Yeah.
that, and you don't want to disappoint the fan when they come around a corner with the wardrobe not looking spot on. And again, I'm fortunate that I'm in the same structure. So that's easy part. But
Mhm.
yeah, there's a lot of wardrobes out there being done now. Kane even does Hatchet now.
That's right. Yeah.
So
Which is
it's
nuts.
interesting how many people do it. Um, it's exciting, actually.
Oh yeah. No, I would obviously die for that opportunity to have you in the full costume. I'm sure people lose their minds when they turn the corner and actually see it. That's got to be pretty satisfying.
About 5 or 6 years ago, when the crew was still alive, meaning Ted White and Steve
Yeah.
Dash, we did one for Texas Frightmare where we had 6 of us in wardrobe,
Oh.
Jason's. It was costly because there's so many of us, but those it was lined up good solid 200 plus people getting photographs with 6 icons.
Yeah. That's crazy. So if anyone, yeah, that's crazy. So if anyone wants to get a photo with CJ in costume, obviously, like I said, jason6.com. That's jasonvi.com. They can also purchase, if they're not able to make it to these conventions, you have autographs, images, and props on the site as well, or they can send stuff
Yeah,
to
on
you.
the
Is that
site, the
right?
interesting I do is on the site, the last page has mail in. A lot of people have items they bought,
Hmm.
their own photos or pops or those things, and they mail them to me, and I just sign them and send them back.
Nice. Cool. Yeah, I'm sure you get cool. Yeah, I'm sure you get VHS tapes and masks and stuff all the time.
Surprisingly enough, the only thing I don't get in is any what are they the beta tapes. I haven't seen any of those,
Oh
but
yeah. You got a laser disc?
yes, I have signed a few of those. Nice
Nice.
ones. The oblongs with Alice Cooper and stuff. They're very nice looking. People actually bring them to the table. They purchased them for a couple $100,
Hmm.
and they open them right on the table. Take the plastic off, and then we get them all signed in pictures with it for authenticity. And then they take it right back and put it home.
That's crazy. Yeah, I would be. I think I would be hesitant to mail something like that, even if I knew it was getting autographed by you, because those things can be valuable, and you don't want to lose it. But that's got to be
I do. Some
nuts.
people will mail like mask. They've got 3 or 4 autographs, but not mine. Again, I don't do as many shows as some.
Yeah.
So it does make it a little more difficult to run me down. But sometimes they'll email me and say, "Hey, I've got a mask signed by 6 of you or 4 of you," and I don't see any shows coming up where I'm at. Can I mail it to you? And they'll send it registered. Not that that means anything. I mean, stuff gets lost that's registered. But no, they'll send it to me. I take pictures of me signing it and email it back to them, holding it. So they got, hey, it's me.
Nice.
Every once in a while, I see stuff online that's a forgery, which is unfortunate.
Ooh.
My autograph is pretty different than most and very unique, but I always sign everything the same way. If I sign 100 items, Josh, if I start signing number one, number 99 will look the same as number one when I'm done signing that many articles. Uh, it's just important to me. Plus, running casino resorts as an executive, I signed a lot of contracts. So
Yeah.
everything is, universal how I sign things.
That's good. Yeah, I know a buddy of mine, Frank, was at Silver Scream a couple of years ago when you were there, and I think you signed his mask. He got a few Jasons because there were a few of you there that year, and he got a bunch of you to sign the same mask, and it looked pretty awesome. So that's a way to do it. Mine is only signed by Kane.
Never heard of him. You think he's listening to this? Sorry, bro.
I don't know. He's on TikTok. I know. I have seen his videos, so he might jump in here.
Now, him and I will tell you that of all the Jasons, he'll even tell you we're the closest, because we've known each other since '87. So we've always had a relationship, and I've always given him 100% credit, with his industry that he's been into. I mean, I'm very fortunate I got to do it. I'm very appreciative that I got to do it, and proud that I think we did a decent job. But at the end of the day, that's been his career. So he earns, my respect. Not to mention, like I said earlier, he's just been a great ambassador for HorrorCons across the board. I remember when he was doing HorrorCons before they even existed, Monster Mania 20 years ago, in New Jersey. So I do remember quite of those ones that have started, and now, like I said, they've gotten where there's 20, 25,000 people at these shows. You go overseas to Manchester, Love of Horror and stuff like that, 50,000. So they're still the smaller ones at 5,000 come through the door, but pretty standard to have 20, 25,000 fans coming through the door with all the different amenities and vendors and tattoos and whatever else is going on at these conventions. And I think what's more exciting for the fans, Josh, is the amount of different people you see. You see people walk by in a suit and tie, then you see somebody anime, then you see somebody walking by with Jason or Freddy Krueger. Then you see people just in shorts wearing their Raiders outfit. But they're all having a great time. I've never seen a conflict of anybody at a show where you can go to a park just to listen to music and there's going to be a conflict. But these shows, these people all have one thing in common, and it's the convention. They're having a great time.
Absolutely. That's what they're my favorite thing to do every year. If I could go to every horror convention, I would, because it's literally just meeting like-minded people and having the best time, and it's all good vibes. It's so much fun.
All good vibes. Good way of putting it. Great. That's a good way to put it. Great vibes. And you love when somebody goes, "Oh, it's my first convention." I'm like, "Well, what do you think?" I had no idea that you get to get this close to the actor or the actress and talk and take selfies and ask questions. So they get pretty excited about it, as I do, because it's I don't know, it's really nice to be appreciated at that level. Unexpected, of course. So you just kind of play it forward as much as you can.
Yeah. What is Larry wants to know what the weirdest celebrity interaction you've had at a con is.
Sitting on Kane's lap.
That'll count.
Tell him,
I take
it's
that.
funny because when we have panels, myself and Kane and Doug and other Jasons, we're always in competition. We're like a football team of brothers. Who's going to be the smart ass on stage and who's going to have the right answer? I still razz them because there was one time somebody because there was one time somebody in the audience asked, "Well, who do you think would be the best Jason in part 13?" Well, I jumped off the couch so fast and left everybody sitting, walked up to the stage, and all I said was, "Any questions?" But we razz each other all
Yeah.
the time. So
Yeah.
we do. We have fun, and who's taller, who's bigger, who's not, who's better. but it's like having a football team of brothers and you're all in competition to impress dad. Dad's the fans.
Nice. And then my buddy Sway wants to know if you could own any horror movie prop, what would it be?
Well, I'm happy with my hockey mask
Yeah.
because I have a personal contact with that because I wore it. So that means it's got my DNA in it. But I think I
And a
go
few
back to
campers
the old.
DNA.
What's that?
And a few campers DNA in there too.
Yeah, but when you wear that stuff, you're sweating. Again, I'm still passionate about Universal horror. There's nothing there as far as a prop to look at because everything was done on set. They were doing it themselves right there, the actors. But
Mhm.
I think, it's crazy that some things I got. If I could show you over here, a fan made me, I'm looking at it, a life size from the chest up of Harry from Harry and the Hendersons. And it's huge. He brought it to me on my table. I'm like, number one, I didn't play Harry, but he's a beautiful job. Doug Tate, who played Jason versus Freddy, the last scene of Coming Out with the Head.
Mhm.
It's funny because when he was 19, he played Harry from Harry and the Hendersons at Universal Studios.
Oh,
And when he saw that picture, he was like, holy snap. And he sent me a picture of him wearing the costume.
that's amazing.
So everything is kind of interacted. I'll give you another tidbit. Ted White, wonderful man that passed away a couple of years back. Ted White would sit in a panel with us and he would sit there and go, he was always a professional. Got the polyester tie on and a suit and turtleneck, old school looking Hollywood. But he'd sit there and say, I did over 100 films. 100 films. And he goes, but only people only know because I played Jason. And it's a fact. And he doesn't even have his name in the movie. He didn't want any
That's right.
credits. If you look for it, you won't see his name. But he'll just laugh. 100 films, with John Wayne and all these actors, and people just know me because I played Jason. How crazy is
Yeah.
that?
It's well, I think that's another just testament to the how iconic the character is because Jason is one like people had a hard time with Freddy getting recast in the remake because they know Robert Englund as Freddy because he talks and you see his face, but Jason doesn't talk and he wears a mask, so it's relatively easy to recast him and get somebody else to play Jason, but people still have their favorite Jason. They know each character, each name. They know who was Jason in Part 8 versus who was Jason in Part 3, and all of these guys that have played Jason, whether it's Ted, who's got a very storied career, or somebody who was Jason for 10 seconds and then didn't really do another movie after that, are all known as Jason. Still have a line of fans to meet them at every convention. Do you have a favorite Jason? Larry wants to know besides yourself.
Oh, there are others? I didn't know that. I'll always lean towards Kane because I've known him for so many years, but
Mhm.
um, the whole crew wouldn't be here without him. And the interesting thing, like you indicated a moment ago, I was going through TSA one time in Atlanta, and the TSA agent looked at my name, CJ Graham, yada yada, and he looked at me and goes, "Are you the guy that played Jason?" I said, "Yeah." Oh man, I love that movie. And I said, "Hey, well, do you know who Derek Mears is?" "Yeah, yeah." I go, "See the bald guy back there, about 10 people? Yeah, that's Derek. Derek, come to the front line." This guy knew it. He knew our names. And again, are you the guy that played Jason? So there are people that actually know. I've had people come up to me at Universal Studios when I was there when my kids were like, I don't know, 15. So it's been like 15 years. And have somebody go, "Aren't you the guy that played Jason?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I mean, really? So there are people that know who we are. Again, not like a Tom Cruise, but they do know the Jasons. Like you said, people do know the characters, and they can go through all the different Jasons and tell you who they are and show you pictures. I think way back in give or take '87, we did a People magazine, and the only reason I remember it is because Elvis Presley's wife was on the cover of it. And then in there were the story of all of us six that had played Jason up to that point.
Nice. Yeah, I would say that's probably the ideal level of celebrity is you can still go grocery shopping, you can still go to the movies, you can still like live a normal life for the most part, and then people who genuinely know who you are and what you've done are going to recognize you, so you still have that fun like fan interaction. I would never want to be like a Tom Cruise who can't even
Right.
like run to the grocery store and
Last year, true story, I was at Albertsons and a guy was bringing his cart towards me. And I thought he was just bringing his cart towards me so I could take it to go in. And he got close to me. He goes, "You CJ Graham, aren't you?" Now, I'm only in a town of 120,000 people, but somehow he knew who I was. So it is kind of odd. Most of the TSA agents know me in Montana where I'm at because I fly in and out twice a month. And they usually know who I am. They've opened my luggage one time because the wardrobe was in there with the mask. So it carried real quick through the TSA. Oh, that's the guy that plays Jason. So they know me when I come up. "Hey, CJ, where you going?" "Oh, I'm going to Kansas this week." "Oh, nice." So it's kind of interesting how, little by little people pick up on you. Um, I did a comic book store here in town recently. They had a theft a few months ago, and I didn't know who they were, but it was on the news. I felt bad, so I went down there with some machetes and mask and 8x10s, introduced myself. And they knew who I was as soon as I said CJ Graham Jason, and signed a bunch of stuff and gave that to them to help them offset their losses of a theft. I mean, there's not much I could do, but it was just another way I could, like I said, say thank you for being
yeah,
fans and people that care about the Jason and the horror and the genres and the pops and everything else they had in their comic book store.
nice. Yeah, I'm sure that was very appreciated. Got another question from the comments here. Someone wants to know if you have a favorite, or I'm sure you do. What's your favorite movie?
Mine?
Yeah, your personal
Oh,
favorite
that's a
movie.
tough one. That's a tough one. There's so many good ones out there. Legends in the Falls, I like that. I thought that was a very cool movie. It
Classic.
kind of plays off the 1923 that's coming out now for the second year.
Mhm.
Uh, but I think that was one I really enjoyed. I think the actors and the actresses were great in it, and just the way it came full circle, as I would like to say. Um, I will fall back on Frankenstein always.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've got a love hate with Frankenstein because I was brought back to life with electricity for the Jason role. So I think those two carry well. You'll always be a fan of Top Gun. I think those are great guy films.
Nice.
And just the way they did it, that's a lot of great shooting, and how they did it with cameras and stuff. I mean, kudos to those crews.
Yeah. Top Gun was the number one movie in theaters when I was born in
86.
1986.
Yep.
Yeah. So I know that. And it's funny because I mentioned that I was at the movie theaters. I'm at the theater like twice a week, but we were at the movies a couple weeks ago and I had to show my ID to buy a beer. And the guy pointed at my birthday and he was like, 86. It's the same year the best Jason movie came out. And I
See?
was like, oh, yeah. I
Who
think I was
knew?
wearing Friday the 13th shirt. So that probably inspired it. But yeah, my girlfriend was like, "Which one's that?" And I was like, "Jason Lives." It's when he's the undead one. Um, Funny because that's the Friday the 13th franchise was the first thing. My girlfriend and I have been together for 15 years, and when we first started dating, I was like, if you want to know what you're getting yourself into, we need to watch the Jason movies. And so I brought the Crystal Lake to Manhattan box set to her place, and we married. I think we got through like the first four before she started dozing, but she now has a Jason mask tattooed on her arm because of that. So it's
Nice.
yeah, I
That's
got a lot of
that's
memories.
an odd thing, Josh, because people come up to me and get my autograph just to get it tattooed on their body.
Yeah, I bet I've seen a
So,
few of those.
yep.
They get them all on the mask, and then they get some on their body. um, my friend Shane asks what your favorite kill was from Jason Lives. I know you had mentioned it was the sheriff. Is that right?
Yeah, Shane, my favorite kill was the sheriff, buddy. Breaking him in half, no blood, no guts, just pure power and the popping of like chicken bones. Uh, Look at my eyes get all excited for that. So yeah,
Just going back to that moment, it's very exciting.
all right, it's easy to turn a switch.
Nice. Sorry, I saw a little pop up on the screen that said it was ending. I didn't want to make sure. Um, I don't want to take up too much of your time, CJ. I don't know if you have a hard out or anything today, but we can take a couple more questions from the comments here.
All right, let's do that, and we'll head out. And I really want to say, Josh, thank you so much for thinking of me. I appreciate you. Not just because you cover all things horror, But, like you said, you're a lady for 15 years, and, to find somebody that has a similarity of horror, like I said earlier, it's interesting the different characteristics of people that are into horror, and the people that say it's not a common conversation piece at the copy machine at the office, but you'd be surprised how many people will say, I'll give you a short story, a long version. A couple of years ago, I had a young lady come up to me and get an autograph, and I always want to engage. So what if you don't mind me asking, what do you do? She goes, oh, I'm a colonel in the Air Force. I'm like, okay. So what are you going to do with this? She goes, well, I'm going to frame it, put it behind my desk at the office. So now, can you imagine being a whatever, walking into the colonel's office, and behind her desk is not a picture of her family, but a picture of Jason holding an arm? Um, what an icebreaker. But
Yeah.
as being a soldier, being a sergeant, walking into a colonel's office, and having a similarity probably of horror, I mean, it's just different, and you start listening to all these people that are, I had two people this past week and they're both cops,
Hmm.
and they're both horror fans, so you just don't know the people that enjoy horror,
Oh yeah.
and you would never think that, you know, Susie Summers would be into horror, but all of a sudden she knows everything about him, every kill, every year, and you just kind of go, wow. It's just like having a football team.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Somebody had asked, going back to the sheriff kill, do you remember what the body was made out of that they had you break in half?
Oh yeah, it's you know what? It's a gig, is all it is. So let me explain to you how it works. There's a hole in the ground
Mhm.
up to the waist of one person, which was the sheriff. So he was standing up straight, but all you see is from the belts up. Then there was another person who was laying down with their legs and their butt, and their head was in the hole. So that means you got it like this. Make sense? This is the
Yeah.
sheriff,
Okay.
and all you did was bend him over like that, so it became one piece. All they did was safety pin the uniform on. So it's actually two people doing the gig.
Okay.
It's a hole they're standing in. That's how simple it was. You could do it at home in your backyard right now.
So the
Seriously.
sound effects, that's all
That's
Foley. You
all the
weren't breaking
chicken
any
bones.
real
Remember I said the
bones.
chicken bones? Yeah.
Yeah. And then Sway wanted to know if Hollywood calls, would you don the mask again? I know you had said if
You know,
the right
and
script came across.
yeah, if I could deliver a product as good or better, yes. All right. But I don't want to be able to be a has-been and not give you the product. So if the film was done well, because I don't want to do a goofy one, I don't want to do like part five, no disrespect. I don't want to be partial to
Mhm.
part six, but I'd like to, if I could, I am same size physically, structurally. Uh, I don't know if I could do all the stunts. I'd love to, but there might be a couple stunts I might not be able to physically do, and I hate to have to cave in and let a younger person do the stunts for me in a couple of them. But
Yeah.
I think if I could do it and turn out a product of solid, I think it'd be fun just to put my name on it one last time, which would be part 13.
Yeah. Absolutely. I know we would line up. We would be there opening night.
I appreciate you.
Um, and then Larry wanted to know what scares you.
Paranormal.
Paranormal.
Anything that I can't see and put my hands around to control, I'm out of here. All
So
right. So that ghost
do you believe
shit,
in
I don't play
ghosts? Have
that
you had
ghost shit.
experiences?
No, I never had them, but I've had a couple of the paranormal shows ask me if I would be guest, and I'm
Mhm.
like, no, it ain't happening.
Yeah.
And I've done a couple, paranormal insanity asylums, psychiatric
Hmm.
wards, like up in Michigan and in New York. And they're like, okay, well, we'll set you up inside. Oh, hell no, I'll be outside. So they can set my table outside because I don't want to look up and see people looking out the window and there ain't nobody there.
Yeah.
So if I can't control it, I'm out of here.
That's fair. That's fair. Nice. All right, CJ. Well, I think I'm going to let you get going, but I do want to say thank you so much thank you for your service. I meant to say that at the very beginning. I know you served in the military, and I do want to thank you for your service. Also, thank you so much for your time today. This has been an absolute pleasure, and I hope we can do it again. Um, and I want to remind everybody, jasonvi.com for jason6.com is where you can see all of CJ's upcoming appearances. If you want to meet him and have him sign a dope photo of Jason or a photo of Hellcop or get a picture with him in costume, He's going to be at a little over a dozen conventions this year, and now's your chance to meet up with Jason, the first undead supernatural Jason from Part 6, Jason Lives. And I know, again, happy belated birthday. I appreciate you taking
Hey,
the time during
Josh,
his
thank you
birthday.
for inviting me on to your show. I appreciate you much. Everybody out there, the fans, thank you so much. And I'm not just talking about me. I know that everybody that's put their fingerprint on the Friday the 13th series appreciate you. I mean this, wouldn't be here without you. So I do appreciate you very much.
You heard it here, guys. Thank
Take
you
care,
so much,
buddy.
CJ. I appreciate it. You too, man.
All right. Safe travels, buddy.
Thanks.